Okay, good evening. It is 5:31, and I will call the Teaching, Learning, Equity, and Pupil Services Committee to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Megan Miller, Greg Schneider,
Present?
Jawan Winfield.
Present.
The roll reflects that Megan Miller is absent tonight.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
And I will second that. With a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Item D is approval of the minutes of November 15th. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And second, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Move on to 2A, and then we're looking at the AGR presentation. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Grorud, Director of Instructional Leadership and STEAM for the school district. And twice a year, I come and present the Achievement Gap Reduction, or AGR, report to this committee. In the fall, we tend to report our last year's outcomes, the current state of our schools, and then our goals for the upcoming year. I will return in the spring, and I'll share some data that we've gathered throughout the year. So just a reminder, if you're not familiar with AGR, AGR is a state grant for supporting K-3 schools to reduce achievement gaps, and it is allocated dependent on the enrollment of economically disadvantaged students. The program was developed in 2015, and it replaced a former program called SAGE. The grant runs in 5-year increments. We renewed our grant in 2020, so we are on our 3rd year of a 5-year cycle. Through AGR, school districts can choose from among 3 strategies that they can use for reducing achievement gaps. These 3 strategies are reducing class size to 18-1 or less than 30-2, implementing coaching, instructional coaching, and or using tutoring, one-to-one tutoring with licensed teachers. So we get to choose from among these strategies as we implement the grant. That's okay. The district has chosen for this grant cycle to use a reduction of class sizes and coaching. And so what I'd like to do is share with you a little bit about our allocations for this year and the classroom size data that we have. So our allocation for the 22-23 school year is $2.87 million, and that is distributed across our K-3 elementary buildings, all 6 of them, to support coaching and teachers for that classroom reduction. We do have coaching available to 100% of our K-3 classrooms through both instructional coaches or math coaches and literacy coaches. Last year, our classroom size, or the classrooms that qualified for that reduced size included 78% of our classrooms. This year, we're down to 60%, but you can see across the district, we are still under that 18-1 ratio. Our goals last year for reading were to use an assessment tool called the Independent Reading Level Assessment, or IRLA, which checks for grade level, whether or not students are at or above grade level reading. Our goal was to move from 17% of students meeting those grade level expectations to move to 42% of students meeting those grade level expectations. We were also hoping to see 1/4 of our students experience 1.5 years more of growth. In math, our goal last year was to actually use a new assessment. We stopped using MAP for kindergarten through second grade. And so we transitioned to using a common standards-based assessment, which we call the math benchmark, for kindergarten through second grade, and then using that MAP growth assessment for third grade. And our goal was to see students reach grade level expectation. So we also moved away from simple growth goals, what percentage of our students were meeting growth, to how many of our students or what percentage of our students were meeting grade level expectations. So our goal was to see 10% increase in the number of students meeting grade level expectations last year. As you can see, the data that we collected last year has led us to some continuous growth over time. So this slide really represents the data from last year, where green is met, where we've met the goals that I just shared, and red is not met. On this slide, you can see we've got represented the 2019-2020, 2020-21, and the 21-22 data. And you can also see that over time, we've got a lot more green going on for these goals. We believe that because of our emphasis and really hard focus on standard-aligned, high-quality instructional materials and the implementation of the coaching program that started in 2019, we believe that we're seeing that continuous growth. Couple things to note on this slide. 16 of 24 sections of literacy met their growth goals. All of the math sections met their growth goals, and this is quite a big change from the previous year. We do reflection on this data quite a bit. And so one of the things, obviously, that we've noticed is that there's been steady growth over time, but we dig into those places where the growth isn't what we expected, where we didn't meet our goals. So even though we saw that the second grade literacy, only 4 of 6 schools met that goal, when we looked at that data a lot more closely, the second grade teams were very close. They were 40 instead of 42. So we made significant progress, we just didn't quite meet our goal. In addition, about 20% of second and third graders did meet that 1.5 years growth benchmark. So that was a marked improvement over previous years. In addition, all of our kindergarten classrooms last year met those literacy and math goals. And so one of the things that we did in reflecting on this data is to say that it's time to actually raise the bar. So this year, what you're gonna see when I share this year's goals is that we're actually raising our goals. So with that in mind, for the upcoming year, our reading is going to use the same assessment that we used last year, and our goal is going to be to raise the percentage of students at or above that reading level for grade level from 25 to 50%. And again, we're going to look for 25% of our students making 1.5 years or more growth. In math, again, we're gonna stick with the assessments that we used last year, and we are going to stretch to try to get 50% of our students to meet that grade level growth. So these are significant shifts in our goals. Through AGR and with just our curriculum planning in general, you can see that we've really had we're working for consistent curriculum and instructional focus. So we have been pushing towards standard-aligned instruction, really doing some vertical progressions and alignment throughout K-12. We are really focused on finding high-quality instructional materials, including materials that are culturally responsive, and materials that provide just-in-time support. So we want to be able to provide what students need when they need it. Through some instructional technology and conferencing that is embedded within the literacy program, we can provide individualized attention to students, and we think that that is also helping to support the student growth that we're seeing. We also provide individualized support to teachers in the classroom through those coaching programs. And finally, within our teaching, learning, and equity team, we've really been spending time thinking about professional learning and how we can really focus on professional learning with high leverage practices that focuses in on that universal instruction and ties to the curricular materials that we're using. So at this time, I'll take any questions.
Board Member Winfield, do you have any questions? I have a couple of questions. I'm going back to the page where you had our current classroom data. There was a column you didn't mention that was number reduced size. What does that indicate?
Those are the number of classrooms in each building that meet that 18:1 or 30:2 ratio.
Okay. So then if we look at converse, if 8 of them meet that right now, that means then that there are the 5 that do not?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And then as I looked at the 21-22 data, I'm looking at the 3 charts that are there, which would be 19-20, 20-21, and 21-22. Noticing that in the 19-20 data, again, all of the kindergarten classes met all of the math and reading goals. But then in second grade, there was not. Was that when there was the shift in the curriculum and the assessments?
For literacy, the shift in the curriculum actually came in the 2021 school year. Is that correct, Tony? That last year?
No, 21, 22. Last year was our first year.
Oh, that's correct. Right. I'm off by a year. Yeah. So 21-22 would have been our first year. Yep, last year.
Okay. Because I can definitely see the change between the 20-21 and the 21-22 year when we look at that data, where the kindergartners in the first one would now be in the second grade in the 21-22 data year. So we're seeing some shifting in there. Okay. So that's where we did that shifting in assessments.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I should probably mention, the gray bars for the 2021 school year for kindergarten, we did not assess in the fall of that year because that was our return from pandemic.
Right. Yep. Okay. Okay.
Board member?
Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
Dr. Garrison?
Thank you. So first of all, let me say again, thank you to the TLE team for all the work that you have put together thus far. I would just like to note that the growth that we are seeing in the 2021-2022 school year, naturally we want to see that growth continue, and naturally we want to see the current highlighted red boxes, of course, change to, of course, green boxes. But I do want to make sure that we note the overall trend of our students in the earlier grade levels meeting grade level expectations based off of this data presentation around the AGR report. I also like to note that in our conversations around student achievement, we also have to understand that growth is always happening, right? And so as we continue to have these conversations around growth, we want to not only bring you these annual reports, we also want to bring you some just regular reports around how growth is happening in our classrooms on a day-to-day basis. I think sometimes we forget that, of course, naturally when you're in a classroom and you're learning, learning is happening, right? And growth is happening. Naturally, we always want to get back to the point of we're reporting this information, but these reports also give us just a snapshot in time. And so I want to make sure we bring note that this course is a snapshot in time. And as we see right now, students are growing. We want to continue to see that in other opportunities as we bring more information to the board. And so again, thank you to the TLE team for the work that has done thus far. And we look forward to showing more opportunities of growth here in our school districts, not only in the K-3 grade levels, but also, of course, for 12 grade levels as well. I would like to also note that although we have had conversations around this, I believe we're going to have additional conversations around the importance of standards and why teaching to the standards, assessing the standards, and reteaching the standards are very, very important to where we want all of our students to be living in. I believe in making sure that all of our students are getting those grade level standards accordingly throughout the school year. And that'll also show us the improved academic achievement that we're striving for here in the school district of Beloit. That is going to be one of our focuses, and I just want to make sure that everyone knows that that's going to be something that we want to continue to bring back to the board, not just in the committee meetings, but also to the general board as we continue to have more conversations around student achievement. And so again, thank you to Mrs. Mortek and of course her entire team, Mrs. Elliott. No, I'm sorry, the entire teaching and learning team, I should say. In my brain, I just saw Miss Elliott flash through my head. Sorry about that. But again, thank you so much to everyone who has assisted us in making this presentation today.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, do we need to take any action on this report? Does this go to the board?
This is usually for information only.
Okay. Okay. Okay, that takes us to item 2B, becoming a virtual charter school. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Stenrus, Director of Career Tech Ed and Alternative Education for the district. Tonight, doing a little presentation on becoming a virtual charter school. And let me just move through here. So we currently have Beloit Virtual School. In this past school year, we changed our platform to the Wisconsin Virtual School. And what we're looking at is the current structure is only open to members of the school district of Beloit. We've had some inquiries from students who are outside of our district boundaries, and we've not been able to accommodate them because our school, virtual school, is just housed within our own district. So what we're looking at is the possibility of moving it to a charter, virtual charter, to expand that opportunity. So we'd be able to get them in, and that would, again, generate extra revenue. It's just following in with the virtual school that we have currently. It also, we have the ability to reimagine our learning options. We have credit recovery for students who come in who are missing a class or two, in addition to them taking initial credit for the very first time. So we have blended options. It's not a one or another. We can have multiple opportunities. In some of our lower programs, there's also some synchronous formats. And we currently have one student in our elementary who is kind of our pilot student who is taking an hour and a half Monday through Thursday of live virtual programming through the Wisconsin Virtual School, and then has other times for meetings and check-in and their other work. So it's a blended format. That kind of sets us apart because we're not just a virtual school of everything is totally online in one format. You're just taking one class at a time. We can provide different options. And this is in line with our growth model that we proposed during our format change. We looked at how we can move from just a standard virtual school of taking classes in a single format to multiple options, possibly having teachers from our school district who are participating in this. And then additionally, this would open up one other avenue for us, is bringing in schools, residents from outside of our district to be a part of our program. Currently, our Wisconsin Virtual School partnership is taking off. We, if you can see our historical enrollment, once COVID sort of hit, virtual school became a larger option. Prior to COVID, it was in the low to mid 20s were total student enrollments. It started to grow, even though it kind of morphed into something different than people thought it might be. It wasn't taught by our Beloit School District employees. But as you can see, enrollments have gone up. Last year, we were in the 90s at one point, kind of settled into the 80s. This year, we have jumped into the 109, 120. We're at 100, I think, as of today, about 126 students who are now in the Beloit Virtual School format through us. Why do we have these growing enrollment numbers? Again, the platform change was significant. There's far more interaction with the platform and our students and their families. They get reports weekly. We did hire the virtual school coordinator who's doing a tremendous job with this. So there's a lot more support, a lot more engagement, a lot more follow through with this. We currently have about 90% of our students engaged on a regular basis, where in the past format, we might not find out for a month or so that the student was really even doing anything whatsoever. So we've seen significant gains. We've only got a few grade reports because the classes are semester long, so we don't have that total ed information, but we've had a few students pass several classes and finish those and complete those already. So up to date, our coordinator can see there should be 9 assignments to date, and students have 7 of them completed, or 4 of them completed, or 0 of them completed, or 9 of them completed, and we're on track to have a much higher success rate. Now, that could fall off in the last 4 or 5 weeks, but we're not anticipating that. So the level of support from the platform, the level of support from our coordinator has brought around greater success, and we're thinking that word of mouth, some of that information has been passed along to, this is a good format or platform for our students. So again, as I said, a virtual school coordinator, the platform change, regular progress monitoring, increased formatting options, and then greater support for our training of our coach and coordinator. And they also have an intake meeting at the very beginning, or intake class at the very beginning of Wisconsin Virtual School. So all of those changes have set us up to be more successful, and you can see our numbers are growing. And it kind of makes our program a little bit more unique than just a one-stop, get online, take your classes, and you don't really hear a whole lot. It's either get a report at the end, you have passed or not. So why the change to a charter school? What would that mean for us? It's a page-and-a-half application from the Department of Public Instruction. It is different than applying for a regular charter, a brick and mortar charter in this case. There are about 10 checklist points to them, and we do 8.5 of them already. The charter being under contract to the school board, our Beloit Virtual School falls underneath our school entity already. The programming is virtual. That's part of it. Teachers are properly licensed. Wisconsin Virtual School monitors that. They have all properly licensed Wisconsin teachers. And in fact, last they told me only 1 teacher doesn't even live in the state of Wisconsin, so that's a high thing. They do all of the evaluation of instruction, teachers evaluation, making sure assessments are up on that. Educational services of 150 days in a school year, that coincides with our school year. The elementary programming, especially if it's synchronous, does follow kind of an academic calendar with that. The one that I've highlighted up there, Parent Advisory Council, that's one that we don't have currently. That would be the biggest piece that we would have to put in there. Otherwise, it's communication with the names of what our school board is, teaching, the council members, the teaching staff. Some of those are available on Wisconsin Virtual School, our school website. We just have to make sure we have a format for that. And then the half one that we would need to do is a truancy lack of engagement policy. We already monitor that within our own system, and that happens with our coordinator and the meetings that they have with the families and the students, especially if they're lack of engagement. However, now we would be required to, especially for those outside of the district, provide a letter saying your child has not engaged, been truant from this for such a long time, set up with the state truancy parameters, that your student is now being disenrolled and going back to their home district. And we would just have to make that consistent with what we do within our school district as well. Again, we do monitor that stuff. We just don't send out a formalized letter in that manner as the state would require with that. So we're asking to make the change from a Beloit virtual school solely housed within the school district of Beloit to allow us to open up our existing programming. Again, only really the addition of a parent advisory council. We've had discussions about that, adding somebody from possibly Blackhawk Technical College, possibly one of our community partners, Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation or something of the sort, to further our bond from our educational system to the community members and even higher education in that manner. Questions?
I got a couple, great job on the presentation. So when I'm hoping we can push this through. I think this is an amazing idea. I just have a couple of concerns. One concern, if we have a kid like in Delavan that's registered in our charter school, will they be able to participate in any sports or activities? Or would they be, would that be like a gray area? How would that work?
They currently cannot. One of the requirements is that participants are virtual, and they are not, as far as I know, members are being able to be a part of a membership of like a WIA sport. However, I will check into that as a former athletic director. I know all those WIA things change as we move along,
Right.
But I would follow up on that.
I appreciate it. I'm sorry, Dr. Gertz.
Let me follow up on that thought as well. Luckily, I've also had some experience in working with the overall having charter schools for the state, and those students typically are not allowed to participate in the WIA sports
Okay.
when they are part of the a part of your virtual school.
Now, when we say WIAA, we talking about high school. What about 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade? That's the
Same.
same.
Same,
Okay.
mhm.
Thank you. And
But again, we can still check into it.
I mean, I will
But-
appreciate it. Yeah,
Okay.
I just think that with that being something that we offer, and we have a lot of things going on, it would be nice for that kid with Delvin Clinton or Hananiga, whoever, we can have that as when you sign up for this, and you also get these activities, or you could join these sports. So, second question: the Parent Advisory Council. Do you other than Black Hawk, is there any other individuals that you think will be willing to sit on that?
I've asked our virtual school coordinator for members of, family names who are participating in the program currently, because we do need them on. So we were in the early discussions on that. We've just thought outside of just a family, because it requires a parent advisory council. We can include the other members, and they don't specify that we need to have those.
Okay.
It just does need to make sure that we have parents on there.
And do you know, will this advisory council be working with the board?
They have to meet regularly and then have to make reports back to either through me as the administrator, or can come right to the board directly.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
And to add to that, we will also probably explore possible connections with the Beloit College as well. I know Black Hawk Tech has been a great partner of ours, but we also have we also have Beloit College right down the street. And I did have some conversations with our TLE director, Mrs. Mortek, about this conversation as well, as a possibility to reach out to some folk there to be a part of this advisory committee.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. I guess the only other question that hasn't been asked is, what are the next steps for you and for the board?
Can I jump in real quick again? So let me say this. There's a couple of next steps that we have to look at. We also have a policy on file right now that kind of governs how we look at charter schools. The policy that is currently written, as it's written, was written back in 2001. And so it was written back when we didn't necessarily have any, virtual, I hate to say virtual, true virtual options. With COVID, everything kind of got, heightened in times 100. And so with that being said, in our current policy, there are some provisions that kind of prevent us, not going to say prevent us, we will have to have conversations around how we want to move this conversation forward, because there are some deadlines that we will have to meet for January the 31st for this application to be moved forward. And so I want to make sure that the board is well aware of our policy 342.9 Rule 1 and 342.9 in general. And in our policy, again, it kind of gives some timelines from when charter schools are supposed to be kind of brought to the board. Unfortunately, based off of this information of our older policy here, November the 1st has already passed, of course, in bringing information to you all, since this just kind of came to us. And of course, we also have some other provisions in here that really just speaks to how a outside entity could become a part of our school districts through a charter school and/or instrumentality charter. And so with those two things in mind, this will be just a little bit different, because again, this virtual school has grown over the years. I mean, and I say over the years because, post-COVID. As Mr. Stenrus has already indicated, we have grown from 80, 81, 109 to 120 students. We do believe that with this being a virtual option that will be open to the entire state, our numbers could possibly grow, into the 150s, possibly even to the 200s, based off of if students would like to participate in our virtual school, because again, this will be open to all students across the state. Naturally, when we're talking about that, when numbers increase, of course, dollars increase for our school district as well. And so we want to see this program grow. I did again want to bring this to the attention of the board that our policies that it currently states, as it's currently written, does have some perimeters around how we can bring charters to the school board. But again, please note that these policies was written more so if an outside school district wanted to become part of our school district from a charter perspective, not necessarily from a virtual perspective. And so we'll probably have to make some amendments within this policy, just so that we can move this conversation forward, or the board can act in a way in which we don't want to hinder student achievement, right? And so we can actually move things in a different direction so that we can get this approved to move forward by January 31st. I did want to bring this to your attention now because that means that, of course, we are almost about a month away from having to have this application completed.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing this forward. I think this is going to be a great addition to the school district. Keep us up to date on how things are going with that. And as also a member of the policy committee, I'm looking forward to seeing those policies at our committee meeting so that we can take a look at those and make the changes that we need to make this happen.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, then we'll go to action item 3A, course change proposals.
Good evening, board members. Dr. Garrison, thank you for having us. We're here to request approval of the course name changes for several courses at Floyd Memorial High School that are in our dual language program. I have Julie Horvath with me this evening. She is the chair of the World Language Department. She will speak about these course name change requests briefly.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Julie Horvath, and I'm here as the co-chair of World Languages. We're proposing name changes for 3 courses. Currently, those courses are Spanish for Spanish Speakers 1, Spanish for Spanish Speakers 2, and Spanish for Spanish Speakers 3. With dual language immersion students in 9th and 10th grade right now, our current course names are not clear enough for students to know which courses they should select for the following year. So the new titles better reflect not only the topics covered, but also the standards that our courses are aligned with. So the Spanish Speakers 1, we would like to propose that the name be changed to the Introduction to High School Spanish Language Arts, so for short, SLA 1. The Spanish for Spanish Speakers 2 course, name should be changed to Intermediate High School Spanish Language Arts, or SLA 2. And the Spanish for Spanish Speakers 3 course should have the name changed to Advanced High School Spanish Language Arts, or SLA 3. These are aligned with the World Language Standards for the state of Wisconsin and for the national standards, but also aligned to language arts standards with the Common Core in English as far as how it affiliates with Spanish language arts.
Okay.
Is there anything else?
Board Member Winfield, any questions?
I was going to say that's it's pretty fast. I appreciate the one slide too. Just a quick question. How long ago before you guys figured it out that the kids was having an issue with understanding where they fell in with the introduction, intermediate, and advanced?
Just recently with students coming up from 9th grade to 10th grade and then our 8th graders into 9th grade. Because we have students who are in DLI who speak Spanish at home. We have students who are in DLI who speak other languages than Spanish at home. We also have students who are not DLI but speak Spanish at home in 11th and 12th graders or even 9th and 10th. And we have students learning Spanish as a second language. So we wanted it to be a little bit more clear with our course names that it's specifically Spanish language arts for all students who want to look more closely at that. And so we feel these new names will better allow students to see those introduction and intermediate and advanced as aligned with the standards that we talk about weekly in class.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Garrison?
And so our overall course languages here, I believe, are, I hate to say cut and dry, but very cut and dry, straight to the point. As Board Member Winfield have already stated, we believe that this is the best, we believe that these types of presentations are more so informational based off of what we're proposing. I do believe that these course changes name changes are appropriate for our high school level.
Okay. My only question is, I think when I look through that, it's just a name change, not a change in the curriculum or anything else.
Correct, name change only.
Okay, thank you. I would like to get a motion to approve the name changes for these courses and to send this on to the full board.
So move.
And I will second that. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next meeting of the Teaching, Learning, Equity, and Pupil Services Committee will be on Tuesday, January 17th, 2023 at 5:30 PM. And that brings us to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Just so you guys know, I can't hear anything from here.
Can you hear us now, Megan? Check. Somebody has turned their sound off.
And just, we got
1 2 1 2.
I'll try leaving and coming back in because it looks like I should be able to hear you, but I can't.
Board Member Miller, is that you? Is that you, Board Member Miller?
Yes, it is. Sorry for the technical issues.
All right. So we'll get ready to get started here. All right, I'm going to call to order the December 20th, 2022 Human Resource Committee meeting at 6:33 p.m. And Mrs. Dooley, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. My mic was not working. Okay, Brian Anderson,
Here?
Spencer Anderson, Amy Levy,
Here.
Sean Levy,
Here.
Megan Miller,
Present?
Greg Schneider,
Present.
Shawan Winfield.
Present.
The board reflects that Spencer Anderson is not with us tonight, and he did let us know that he had a prior obligation.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So move.
Second?
It's been moved by Board Member A. Levy and seconded by Board Member Brian Anderson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion for the approval of the minutes?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Board Member A. Levy and seconded by Board Member G. Schneider. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We're now on to employment recommendations. Prior to, is there anyone who needs to go into closed session? Any items for closed session? All right, so then we will not be going into closed session. Is there a motion?
I have a question, open session
Question.
question.
Thank you.
So in Exhibit B, if you could just let me know, what is the process for confirming years of experience for coaches? And the reason is that I ask is that Coach Halverson initially appeared on employee recs on November 1st of this year with 0 years experience. And I see that she's listed now, 7 weeks later, with a year of experience.
The years of experience for the purpose of coaching are listed based on prior experience, and they could have had that experience even if they were not teaching. And those years of experience are provided to us from the coaching, the director of athletics.
Okay, so again, my concern is she initially appeared November 1st of this year, and under the column for years of experience, it said 0. And so 7 weeks later, she appears for a different sport, which is great. I'm glad she wants to come back and continue to coach, but it says a year of experience. So I'm not sure how you get a year of experience in 7 weeks.
I'd have to verify. Like I said, sometimes they can have experience in that particular sport elsewhere, but I don't know since we derived that information directly from the athletics director.
Okay, but, and last point, just to be clear, if that experience was had, I would have assumed that that would have appeared on the November 1st, because that means that the amount was incorrect then. If she has the experience, she wasn't compensated for it with the last addendum from November 1st.
Duly noted, and I can definitely check on that for you and provide you an update on my findings.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I have another question to add to that one. Are the years of experience being counted as seasons of experience in coaching a sport? I understand that a season is not a year, but in terms of if a coach has 0 experience coaching, as we look at our intermediate school model, boys basketball starts first, A coach could have 0 seasons of experience, have coached that intermediate boys basketball season, those 7 weeks, and then now they're at the girls intermediate basketball season. Are we counting seasons, or are we counting 365-day calendar years? Because if they've only coached intermediate boys basketball for those 7 weeks, and then the full calendar year goes around, and they've not done any other thing basketball related, it's still the same 7-week season that's counting for when they come back around again to be 1 full year of experience. I mean, things are written a certain way, but we're just trying to have an understanding of
And-
how things are being moved forward.
Absolutely, and it's a very valid question. And as I stated, I will be more than happy to get clarification and provide that information back to the board.
I do have an additional question. I'm sorry. I just want to put this out. Mrs. Levy, your question it was centered around the year. Was this for the same sport or was it for a different sport back in November? Sorry.
No, it's basketball.
Okay.
So it was boys basketball and then it's girls basketball. But I love words and words have meanings, and a year means a year. If it was a season, then we would have built the matrix to say seasons of experience. And I think there's a valid point for that.
Yep.
But here's the thing. If I've been coaching for 8 years, if we're going under this premise, I could coach the fall season, the winter season, the spring season, and then in 2 years, I could max out on that pay scale. Now, I don't know how someone who has had 8 calendar years of experience would feel about that, and we talk about pay equity with experience. So I took years to mean
Literally.
years.
Agreed. And yep, I will find out for you and definitely update the board, and I can provide the clarification for the next board meeting. I just don't want to speculate. I'd rather get that confirmation directly.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other board members have questions for Exhibit A or B? All right, is there a motion for Exhibit A and B?
We'll have a question before we get to a motion. So would we pull that position until we get clarification? Because we don't know what we're approving.
How would you like to proceed, Board Member Levy?
I would like to pull it until the next board member, so everyone's clear on what they're agreeing to.
Okay. You make a motion?
I move approval of Exhibit A and B for employee recommendations for 12/20, with the exception of the Fruzen Intermediate Girls Basketball Coach position. I would like to see that position back on employee recs, and I believe it's our January 3rd meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved by Board Member A. Levy and seconded by Board Member B. Anderson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. And motion passes unanimously. We didn't go to closed session. So we are now at our next meeting date. Our next meeting date is Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023 at 6:30 PM. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So move.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Board Member M. Miller and seconded by Board Member A. Levy. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, and a call to order. Just a minute. 7 o'clock, regular business meeting of the School District of Beloit for December 20th, 2022. Mrs. Dooley, could I have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Brian Anderson,
Here?
Spencer Anderson, Amy Levy, Sean Levy,
Present.
Megan Miller,
Present.
Greg Schneider,
Present.
Jawan Winfield.
Here.
The roll reflects that Spencer Anderson is absent.
Is there a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by Board Member Greg Schneider and seconded by Board Member Brian Anderson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Please stand as I lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. All right. All right, we are now at public comment. Gotta read.
We do have in person Teresa Johnson of 1621 Indian Road.
Okay, just a minute. Let me read our public comment notice. Okay, well, two things first. The Board of Education would like to let our families and viewers know that our regular board meetings are being simultaneously interpreted. You can watch the Spanish interpreted meeting through the link found at the board website under the Watch Meetings tab with tonight's date. In order to accommodate this interpretation, we will be monitoring the pace of our meeting to allow time for the interpretation, and I would like to remind our board members and others speaking to please speak one at a time. Thank you so much for your consideration and understanding. All right. And then as we come to public comment, let's read our norms for participation. All right, the Board of Education meetings are conducted for the purposes of carrying on the business of the schools. The board, as representative body of the School District of Beloit, wishes to provide an avenue for any individual to express interest in and concern for the schools. Accordingly, the public is invited to attend any sessions of the board or any meetings of board committees. At every regular meeting of the board, time is set aside for the personal presentation of individual or group comments. Each person wishing to speak during this time shall complete the public comment card with their first and last name, home address, including city and state, if other than Wisconsin, topic to be addressed, and whether you are speaking for or against this topic. Comment card shall then be given to the board secretary for entering into the public record. Each person will be given up to 3 minutes to speak on their topic of interest or concern. Should the individual require translation assistance, a translator may be of the individual's choosing or one provided by the district. Public comments requiring translation will be given 6 minutes. The Board of Education asks that individuals complete the public comment card, give it to the board secretary, and approach the microphone when called upon. And just a minute. I also have to read our norms for participation. The norms for public comments during board meetings. Members of the public are welcome to attend all open meetings of the Board of Education. Robert's Rules of Orders will be followed at all times. Individuals attending board meetings are expected to conduct themselves in a respectful and courteous manner that models appropriate behavior for our students. Individuals wishing to comment are expected to comply with the following norms in order to maintain a respectful and orderly meeting and to prevent discussion of confidential matters in a public forum. Comments should be directed to members of the Board of Education and not district employees, students, or other members of the public in attendance at the meeting. Speech that is belligerent, disorderly, disruptive, repetitive, or which exceeds the allowable time permitted for each speaker is prohibited. Concerns or questions that entail the disclosure of identifying information regarding specific students are prohibited. Responses from the board, if any, will be limited to clarifying inaccurate information, seeking additional information from the speaker, or acknowledging that the speaker has been understood. The board will not debate with an individual, and the board may not take action on an item raised during public comment that is not on the meeting notice agenda. The chair will interrupt and rule an individual who violates any of these norms out of order. If ruled out of order by the chair, the individual's opportunity to address the board will end immediately, and the microphone will be turned off. Thank you for your participation and courtesy. And you said we have email and a speaker? No. Just one speaker. All right, speaker.
4 years ago, I went to the high school's new freshman family night at Beloit Memorial.
One of the classrooms had the 2 windows opened, each with a large fan set on high. Yet the classroom was still stifling hot. Everyone that was in there, just standing still, was sweating. I told my son he had my permission to leave any classroom that had those conditions if he needed a breath of air or water. Upon learning about the current proposed referendum, I asked my son how many other classrooms he had experienced when at Memorial that had inadequate heating, ventilation, air conditioning. Too many to count, but the weight room had good air conditioning, he replied. For too many years now, this district has failed to put academics at its top budgetary priority. In August, I was offered a science teaching position. In late August, we had a fair amount of rain and humidity. When I went into the classroom where I would be teaching, the air was so noxious that I had a headache within 5 minutes. The room had no windows that would open to allow fresh air and old lighting. On the way out for the day, the secretary stopped in and commented about the foulness of the air, suggesting the non-functioning bathroom within the classroom may be the cause of the mold and mildew. The following morning, I went and asked the administrator if there was a different room available. They responded with, no, there was nothing they could do about it. I explained the headache that had persisted through the night and I couldn't teach in a room with that kind of air quality. Again, there was nothing they could do. The secretary then suggested the room be cleaned thoroughly by janitors. The administrator finally conceded and agreed to contact maintenance. Considering the building had enormous video screens and high-tech projection system installed in the gymnasium over the summer, but clean, breathable air was something I had to argue for, I resigned the next business day. Until this district, with you in the position of leadership, puts academics, including tolerable classrooms, as its top priority, I can't and won't support this referendum. I encourage you to all consider a referendum for reconfiguring the reconfiguration. Is it the best use of our public dollars at this time in this school district? The reason people are leaving is because they want high-quality academics, safe classroom, and breathable air.
All right, thank you. To student board report.
With today being the last day before winter break, I'm delighted in saying that we are ending the 2022 year on quite the positive note and are truly emulating the values of the season of giving. As you may have seen posted by the district Facebook page, courtesy of Ms. Christopa, several great things have been happening, especially with Key Club, visiting Robinson to work with younger students, hosting a drive, and creating care packages for those without homes in our community. Similarly, the National Honor Society packed meals for Meals on Wheels and is starting up tutoring services within the high school. Last week, students got a survey regarding AP classes specifically aimed to discover why students might be hesitant to take them. As someone who has taken many AP classes and is just about to finish a semester with strictly AP classes, I know the value they bring. Undoubtedly, many students within the high school have the potential to take advantage of these courses, but many choose not to. Through my own discoveries, I found it to be due to two main things other than the premise of a bigger workload. First, students definitely care about their GPA, which they believe an AP class will ruin. Although in the college application process, colleges will automatically weigh out GPA based on one's course load, the high school currently does not use weighted GPA. And while I personally am not too fixated on my GPA, I can understand why some students might not want theirs to be ruined. The other reason I have found our AP enrollment to be relatively low is the fact that it is only many AP courses are only available at the beginning of the year and typically only last a single semester. Many student athletes might be discouraged to take AP classes due to their sports season in winter or fall. Also, most AP classes end 3 months before the exam, which means that if a student wishes to do well on the exam, which will actually give them the college credit they are seeking, they'd have to continuously study on top of a new semester of classes. This then refrains the student from taking the classes, because if they don't do well on the exam, they think there's no point in doing it at all. While the issue and the solution mostly pertains with admin, I'd hope to show you that we do have limitless potential in our school. It's just the factors often discourage their greatness from being shown. If these AP classes were possibly stretched out to last an entire year, like many schools across America already have it, with like an A-day, B-day schedule or something of the sorts, along with having properly weighted GPA, we'd see higher enrollment in these classes along with higher exam scores. On another note, within the past month, while going through the college application process, a couple things dawned on me. This college application stuff is so unnecessarily complicated, and I truly don't even know what I want to do after high school. I wondered if I shared any of these thoughts with my peers, and I definitely did. While at the high school, we have many amazing support staff to reach out for applications, scholarships, and all other sorts of things. Despite all of this, however, I came to realize that many people in our school lack a clear direction, not only for what they want to do after high school, but also what they want to do in high school. With our district tagline being "Thinking Beyond Now," I personally thought it to be quite ironic. While I know the staff is always supporting our kids the best they can, and we even dedicate time in our academic labs, which are like study halls, for college and career planning, the amount of actual insightful planning really ends there. While one's future should mostly be determined by their own ambition, students are often lost, confused, overwhelmed, and in need of support for planning their future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Board report.
Thank you from our student presenter as well. And so I would like to say that, of course, we are in our holiday season. So again, happy holidays and, of course, happy New Year's to everyone here in the school district. Just to let everyone know that our district will be, of course, on a holiday break, of course, starting today. But our buildings will be operational. We are open here in the KEC tomorrow, of course, on December 22nd, and throughout the district on the 27th, 28th, and 29th. Naturally, we will have our buildings closed during the 30th and the 31st for the new year, but we all want to make sure I put that into consideration for everyone. Additionally, I have been having plenty of conversations as it pertains to more community conversations. I would like to say that I had some conversations with State Line Community, State Line YMCA, Community Action. I met with other community members, Kevin Levy, Paris Eccles, who also works with us through our Born Gifted program. All of these community meetings with me, I should say, have been very positive, and it's great to get to know our many different community advocates that work very closely with the school district of Beloit. I have also started some conversations around the reconfiguration. As you all know, last week, I believe, on Thursday, there's been so many night meetings over the past month. My days are kind of getting a little twisted, but again, we have had some reconfiguration meetings last week, and it went very well. The committee did meet together and of course, laid out some of our opportunities and how we will move forward with reconfiguration. Additionally, we've had our ad hoc referendum committee meetings as well. Those meetings have been happening pretty much since the week of November the 30th. And we have also but we've also had that meeting again just as early as yesterday. I have had some other communications opportunities. We have started our School District of Beloit podcast, which actually launched last week. I happen to be the first guest, and hopefully parents and community members will take a listen to the podcast. We will be inviting other community members into that conversation as well, so we can get to know each other on a different level. Some of it is fun, some of it's more informational, but overall it's an opportunity for us to get to know many different members here in our school district, as well as how we connect overall. Academic achievement, we've had some conversations here in our school district over at the Rotary. We've celebrated over, I believe right now as it counts, over 8 different students at Rotary over the past month. And I would like to say thank you to Mrs. Proust for helping me lead that conversation. We've also had some additional conversations as it pertains to our openings here in the school district, one in which being our executive director position for business services, and of course our finance position that I'm actively looking for at the current time. And so I would like to also thank Mr. Duff and his steed as he has stood in the gap for us in this area. I have countless conversations with him as well as pertains to kind of finding this next opportunity for us. But again, I wanted to make sure I did put out a public thank you to Mr. Duff for his work with us over the past few months as we look to fill these 2 positions. That concludes my superintendent's update. And again, thank you, board.
Board members, any questions?
Yes, Dr. Harrison, where can I find that podcast?
Yes, right now it's for sale only. No, I'm just joking. The podcast will be released, and Mrs. Christopa will be able to share that information with you as it pertains to how to get it.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Levy. It is currently in the newsletter.
Oh.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. We're on to committee reports, business operations and finance. Board member Spencer Anderson is not here, so we'll move past that. Teaching, learning, equity, and pupil services.
Hi, good evening. Since Board Member Schneider was kind enough to chair that meeting this evening, Board Member Schneider, would you like to report out?
Sure. We met earlier this evening. We had an update report on the Achievement Gap Reduction Program and where we are at this year and goals for next year to move forward. We had a presentation on a change proposed for our charters, for our virtual school to take it from a district program only into a school-sponsored virtual school, which would allow students from around the state to enroll and participate in our virtual school. We also looked at 3 courses in the World Languages Department to rename them, just for clarification, to make it easier for students to be able to identify which class they should be signing up for. And those changes are part of our consent agenda this evening. And those are just name change only on those. That is our report. We will meet again the 3rd Tuesday of January at 5:30.
All right, thank you. Governance Committee, we had talked earlier in the month about not having our Governance Committee meeting. What we usually use the Governance Committee meeting for is to tee up items that are important as we're continuing to keep us on track. So we still are planning not to have that Governance Committee meeting for December, but we may have to have a special board meeting to address a couple other things on the 27th. So there's a possibility of a special board meeting that will get worked in to address certain items. So be on the lookout. There may be an email coming. Legislative update and policy committee.
There's no legislative update because the legislature is not currently in session. Policy committee will meet next on Wednesday, January 4th, 5:30.
And ad hoc referendum committee.
Yes, Mr. Clint Anderson, are you online?
Yes, I am.
We're at the point now where we would like you to make any updates to the ad hoc referendum committee.
Sure. So over the last several weeks, our referendum committee has met to discuss the possibility of going to referendum. And if so, is it going to be capital? is it going to be operating, or is it going to be both? And based on a lot of dialogue and discussion, the committee with Dr. Garrison, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, 11-1 suggested we go to both operating and capital referendums.
That is correct.
And now it's up to the board to figure out the language and the amount and all the other details. But I know that this referendum committee will be looking forward to helping get the information out about what this means come April. And I will defer any questions to Dr. Garrison or any other staff who are on the call.
Board, I would also like to note that, again, over the course of these past 4 weeks, we have met again weekly in that conversation, and I believe the progress that the ad hoc committee has made has been very insightful. Our first meeting, we pretty much did a recap as pertains to our overall financials here in the school district. In our second meeting, we did a more deeper dive into our overall fund balance conversations. And in our third meetings, we did an even deeper dive as it pertains to our overall requests from a facilities and or capital referenda and operational referenda. All 4 meetings, I should say, was well attended, and we have had assistance from Baird, Lisa Voisin, and of course Kevin Mullen has also participated in these conversations. Our goal is again to bring information to the committee, and as our chair, Mr. Anderson has stated, Clint Anderson has stated, that they believe that we should go to both capital and referendum to the tune of 11-1. Now that one vote also stated that we should go to referendum, but the vote also stated that we believed, well, the voter believed that we should go to just the capital referendum, thank you, capital referendum over the operational. So even that one vote stated we should still at some point go towards referenda. That it concludes the ad hoc committee's conversation, and I'll turn it back over to the board for possible conversation.
Any board members, comments or questions for the ad hoc referendum committee or the subject of the topic?
I don't have a question, but just appreciation for all of the staff that put in the work to pull the information for our meetings and to get us to the next stage. So much appreciated.
Yeah, I'll just add again, a thank you to those community members who did serve on that committee. The purpose of the board forming that committee was so that we could address our financial situation with a larger group than just the 7 elected board members. The committee did study the issue of placing a referendum question on the April 2023 ballot to provide stabilization in finances in the school district through a non-recurring or recurring operational and or debt capital referendum. And they have now provided us an advisory recommendation. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done in between to set the actual question that would appear on the ballot. But for context, our budget situation is something that we have looked at over the last 2 years. Prior to this year, we did not have a strategic plan, so when you begin to talk about prioritization of spending, that is what we addressed last year. Like a lot of districts, we have used our ESSER funding to supplement some of the expenses that we have. And then we're also in a situation where we know that we have lost, due to declining enrollment, students, and we're in the process of needing to make adjustments to our budget in that way. I think one of the most significant things that came out of our work with the ad hoc committee and with the presentations from Baird, presentations by Mr. Duff, is that we can't just cut our own way out of our budget situation. That it's going to take more action, more actions than just asking for money through referendum and just cutting our budget. So what we have tried to do is invite our whole community to the table because we felt that we would be irresponsible if we did not alert the community to these are the situations and decisions that we're looking at. Again, to provide some context, when we decided after Dr. Kieser let us know that he was leaving, that we needed to get a superintendent, and we worked towards that, filling that, that vacancy during the fall, during the summer and the fall, is because we know we had to have budgeting. We had already started a conversation regarding our financials in January with the referenda planning. Now, as we go into the next school year, many school districts are advertising for superintendents, and other school districts that have not or were not successful with their referendum are also in that process. It's very difficult to do many things at once and then do them all well. But the way that we are positioned now in our district is we have a strategic plan to set priorities for our spending as we try to achieve the vision of the community. We have a superintendent to help drive that vision. One of the things that Dr. Garrison did make note of tonight is that we still have vacancies in our financial services department. Mark Duff is providing service, and so is Baird, but that's a key administrative hire that we have to make. And then we may possibly be going to look to stabilize our finances in the spring. So with that, it's going to create a beginning of a process as we talk about our budget and finances that we're going to continue to keep our community involved in so that we have stability as we make decisions so that people can see that we are going to be productive and get us to where we need to be. But it's very important that we have these conversations now because if not, we would not be in a position to take action. So this is all about being proactive and making sure that the waters can be calm because we know we've got some things to do versus not doing anything and being in an emergency. And that's really what we think is best so that our students and our employees can have a rewarding experience in their learning and their work, and that we can meet the goals of our community through the expectations that they have for what we're providing for the students in Beloit. All right. Okay, so we're now down to the consent agenda. And is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, it's been moved by Board Member Schneider and seconded by Board Member Miller. All those in favor signify by saying, is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And we are now at 6A, items for action and discussion, forecasting marketing budget.
Good evening, board members. As you know, we talked about the referendum and the ad hoc committee and the moving forward of their support with the referendum. And with that comes a lot of communication, marketing, and sharing of information. So in talking with Dr. Garrison, we have put together a tentative proposed budget to bring for your review, not approval, but to let you know some of the expenditures that may come along with pushing that referendum forward into the market. So I looked at several different avenues that are used in communicating referendum materials. So an advertising traditionally could go anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000. Print production, I will say paper costs have risen exponentially, and it is Board Member Juwan is shaking his head. It has become very, very expensive. Direct mail, it would determine, again, I gave a range, whether we do one direct mail piece, 2 or 3. Yard signs and banners, window clings or clings for cars. And then some branding work will need to take place because the artwork will need to be in a vector format, and we can't do that here. We have to outsource that vector work, so the artwork is. And then I left a small miscellaneous budget because I don't know how costs may increase in January as well. So this is a broad look at that. There are things we can do internally that have soft costs associated with them, but not hard dollar costs.
I'd also like to note that, again, this is just general information that we thought the board should have as we have had to experience, as we kind of work through the referenda conversation. I believe that this information helps give the board possible idea as it pertains to, again, what things may cost. One of the hardest things to kind of prepare for is you know, I'm just being real honest, the unexpected things that may come up in this referenda, as possible referenda as well. And I know the board again has to make a decision whether or not we will move forward, but I do think that this information, just as the information within the ad hoc committee was brought to you all, that this is something additional that we want you all to consider as you make the decision.
All right, are there any other questions from board members?
I do have a question. So at the top where it says traditional advertising, is traditional advertising different than the items that are listed below that?
Very good question. Thank you. Traditional advertising in our market would be radio and print.
Okay, so that's radio and print only.
Only.
So, I know this is just for discussion, and I'm assuming a more refined budget will come back to us for approval. But just to make sure that I'm processing this correctly, if we do traditional advertising in addition to some of the things that are listed below, and I know we can decide how many direct mailings if we want to do that, but this looks like it could cost $80,000 to $100,000. Is that accurate?
I think that's accurate. And I did get bids and proposals from traditional media for radio stations that broadcast specifically within our market, and then the Beloit Daily News and the Shopper. So we'd have to decide, do you want one ad, two ads? Frequency is more important. So I know it seems like broad, but decisions will need to be made at some point.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Dr. Garrison, did you want to add anything to that?
I did. Thank you, Board Member Levy, for the question as well. I think when you think about totals in the referenda, this is also, we have to also think about the long-range conversations that we've been having around possible extensions to referenda. In the ad hoc committee, one of the things that was presented was this could be a possible two-phase referenda. One in the short term, the one that's coming up here, April 2023, and then of course going into the following year, April 2024, could be an additional referendum that we will have to work through once some of the other facilities and studies that we will be going to bid for get into our hands. And so we know that this could be an ongoing conversation. And so part of this, of course, if it goes under, that's great, right? And we can use some of those funds to continue the referendum conversation moving into the 2020-24 school year. And so this is just a way for us to start kind of wrapping our brains around the possible costs and, again, the range that this could actually take. It'll be hard to give you an itemized number as it pertains to what each thing will cost. However, I do believe that this kind of gives us the ballpark range of what we could possibly be going up to on the short range. And if there's savings, we can use that same money to go into the long range conversation as well. Or it could cost even more money when we move into the 2024 referenda.
Just one other thing. So, Board Member Levy, when I looked that up, when I added up that top end, like if you took the top end for all of them, it's about 113,000, and the number doesn't scare me. You have to have a good shovel if you want to move snow, right? So it's a tool. I mean, it's a tool. But my question is, do we know? Is there a benchmark? Is there another district that we can say, hey, Brown Deer did a referendum and it cost them $33,000, and I say, well, wow, then why is ours going to cost so much? And likewise, on the other side, if you say, a district down the road spent $350,000 on a referendum, I'd say, well, are we spending enough and are we missing something? So the dollar amount to me, I don't think really tells the story as is it effective or not? So any comments on that?
Sure. I mean, that's a great comment. I think one of the things we have to remember is that across the state of Wisconsin, there's been a large number of approved referendas, and boards will probably approve anything from, I hate to say it, 50,000 and up. But I guess our goal is for it to be approved, and since we haven't done one since 2012, and prior to that, I believe 1990 something, 93, we want to get it right, and that's kind of the goal. And so I agree with your thoughts. That's something that we can definitely look into as it pertains to possible ranges. I don't perceive to see districts on referendums on the millions of dollars side to be anything under $30,000. I don't perceive that to be a case at all. It's going to cost anywhere from, like I said, $30,000 or more dollars to approve whatever budget, whatever we bring towards referenda. So, great question, and I can look into that just to show, kind of where we're falling with our numbers. I will say I've already had conversations with 3 other school districts around referenda. Verona. Of course, I know Brown Deer School District because we had one as well. And then another district right here in, I want to say adjacent to us, I don't want to say Clinton, but one other school district that have done a referendum most recently, and they are more than willing to share with me the costs that they had around advertising as well.
Could I add just one additional comment? We want to be careful, too, that we're meeting the target market, which is 14,500 voters in the city of Beloit. So we want to make sure when we're doing this that we're targeting the communication avenues that those individuals like to receive their information as well, which kind of played into a little bit of the cost analysis for this.
Yeah, one of the things I'll say about thank you for the forecast. Like I said, as we examine our need to go to referendum, as we presented our financials earlier, like I said, those of us who are homeowners who have received our tax statements, taxes in the school district of Beloit have gone down 54%. 54%. And one of the things that we're also looking at as we make this decision is that next year, without a referendum, that'll go down even lower. So as we address that, we know that the information that is necessary to educate the voters about what's going on is something that will need to be done. We also have our work from school perceptions earlier. It talks about clarifying our message, but we'll still have to make the decision on whether we're going to go to referendum, craft our question, and then prepare a budget for the information campaign to be conducted to bring that to the attention of our constituents. And so we received the information. Thank you, and then we'll take those next steps as we move along. All right. Any other board member on this item? All right. 2021-22 district financial audit.
Thank you very much. So two weeks ago, we provided you with this financial document for you to review. It's not the easiest reading, and it is a fairly complicated financial report. But it should be noted that the audit isn't only just about this complicated financial report. It's the independent auditors do a significant amount of work reviewing accounting practices, standards, our district's compliance with processes and procedures to make sure we're running a sound district with their process and procedures as it relates to finance. Finance departments and districts strive to get a clean audit. This is largely a clean audit, which is great news that the district has good staff doing good work and processes and procedures. Now, I shouldn't take away from Greg's presentation, but the auditor from Kerber Rose, Greg Patel, I don't know if that's pronounced right, sorry, Greg, is here for us to present his findings and the audit, and he'd be happy to answer questions from the board. Greg?
Thank you for the introduction, Mark. I'm happy to be here tonight. And as Mark said, I'm going to summarize the audit results, and then we have a few financial observations in regards to the general fund balance, fund balance at the end of the year. So it's a snapshot of as of June 30th, 2022. And so from an audit results standpoint, you have a clean, unmodified audit opinion on the financials. Mark alluded to it a little bit. We've primarily achieved this opinion through two phases of the audit, which is we come in and we look at your most significant accounting practices, payroll, receipts, general journal entries, disbursements, and we look at the internal controls around those. If we note any deficiencies, then we measure it against a threshold. Do you have a material weakness? Do you have a significant deficiency? I'm proud to say, or happy to say, that you have one repeat audit finding, which is a significant deficiency. That's the lower of the two. And that basically says that we prepare the financial statements and then we hand them back to your team. They review them, approve them, and send the management rep letter back indicating that you accept responsibility for the content of those financial statements themselves. And then during final audit work, the district hands over its final adjusted trial balance, and we perform sample transactions in order to substantiate the amounts contained in your financial statements themselves. We also test your federal and state single major programs, and we had no compliance or internal control findings in relations to your federal and state single audit programs. Mark, if you can move to the next. So the district's unassigned general fund balance as of June 30th was a little over $12 million. We suggest anywhere from 20 to 25% of your general fund expenditures in unassigned fund balance at the end of the year. And that suggestion is really based off of the timing of your most significant revenues. You start your fiscal year on July 1st, and then you levy your taxes and collect the majority of them in January and February, but then you still have an outstanding taxes receivable that is paid in August, so a month, 2 months after the fiscal year ends. And then at the end of the year, you true up your federal and state grant claims as well. So really that 20 to 25% suggestion allows you to avoid short-term borrowing. And the district's general fund balance has been pretty strong, but we do have some trend information here in regards to general fund expenditures, and then also with your minimum fund balance policy. If we can go to the next slide. Here we have the general fund's performance against the budget for the year. And you can see in the far left-hand column, you have the original adopted budget. And the third line from the bottom there, net change in fund balance. That indicates that you adopted a budget which you anticipated decreasing overall budget by $10.5 million. The next column to the right there is your final adopted budget, and that anticipated decrease in the general fund balance by $9.6 million. And then the third column is the actual performance of the general fund budget for the year, which was a decrease of $6.2 million from $20 million at the beginning of the fiscal year to an ending fund balance of $14 million. And then that far right column is a variance from actual to final budget performance. So you even though the general fund decreased $6 million in relation to the final adopted budget, that was a positive performance of approximately $3.4 million. We can go on to the next slide. Here on this slide, the black bar column indicates your unassigned general fund balance at the end of the year. The purple column indicates the general fund expenditures for the year. So just a 4-year look back, I think that's helpful to understand from a trend perspective where you've been and where you're heading. And so in 2019, you had general fund expenditures of approximately $80 million. And then at 2022 here, approximately $100 million. And then as far as the general fund expenditures or general fund unassigned fund balance as a percent of those general fund expenditures, you can see you've been anywhere from 18.53% in 2019, now down to 12% at June 30 of 2022. And go ahead and move to the next. So the district has adopted a minimum fund balance policy of 14% of the subsequent fiscal year's budgeted expenditures. And at the end of 2022, then, as I had previously indicated, you were at 12% of general fund unassigned fund balance expenditures. So you dipped a little bit below the 14% of your adopted minimum fund balance policy. So the fund balance policy is that blue line there. And then the red line is your unassigned general fund balance. Do you have any questions for me based on those results?
I do have one question. So if we look at the financial reporting and the findings, so page 57, 57, and then it continues on page 60 of the packet that we received. So the first one on page 57 says management does not have the training and expertise to prepare the financial statements in conformity with GAAP. So my question is, if we don't have the training to produce the statements, do we also not have the training to review and accept the statements that have been generated and submitted? So if you could speak to that, that would be helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really where you can distinguish a significant deficiency from the material weakness. We can really tell management's ability to review the financial statements and accept responsibility for them by the number of adjusting entries that we have to your trial balance. So as I indicated, we take your final trial balance, and if anything is materially misstated, we propose an adjusting entry to make that unmisstated then. And you had no adjusting journal entries. So your finance team with Wendy and now Mark helping out, I know he was helping a little bit during the process as well. You have a very strong finance team. And so when we look at that financial reporting finding, we're very comfortable understanding that your team can take this set of financial statements and understand the numbers in them. A lot of times with the fast changing pace of the GASB pronouncements, which is the standard setter for accounting on the government side of things, being able to get the disclosures just in accordance with GAAP takes a lot of investment in knowledge and training to do that. And when I entered the profession in 2005, we were on GASB Statements 43, and now we are at GASB Statement 101. So when we look at, we have 53 school districts that we do audits for. We don't have any school districts that hand us their own financial statements, just because of the time commitment to doing these once a year and getting them right. I really do think that understanding them as much as possible and reviewing them and having good questions or corrections is a really good alternative to having your staff spend their time completing these.
Thank you for that clarification. It is an also accurate statement that our financials are also submitted to DPI, and if there are any inconsistencies there, that those are immediately red flagged, and then you have a certain amount of time to get that information corrected.
Yes, that is correct. So the DPI in Wisconsin, they are in charge of federal and state funding, and as a result, they've set up a very stringent chart of accounts, and they have a lot of oversight of public school districts in Wisconsin. And you have to submit detailed reports to them in September. And then again, these audited financials that you're looking at tonight then have to be submitted by December 15th by statute. And they review those September reports, and then again, once they have the audited financials, they review these audited financials and make sure that those September reports are consistent with each other.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective.
And I just wanted to add, I think Greg said something way at the end on the financial reporting finding. Almost every school district that I've worked in has that same finding. It's a high level of accounting skill that is required to put together these reports, and frequently districts just say, we'll have the auditors do that and accept the finding. We were able, in Racine, we had a very skilled person that was able to do them, and so we were able to get that finding taken off, and we did have some arrangement with the auditors, but it is pretty rare that districts don't have this finding. I don't know, Greg, if that's a good way to put it. And then
I would agree with that, Mark.
Yeah. And then the other thing was, you are correct. We send the audit to the federal government. We send the audit to DPI. We have financial reporting, and it all has to match. It's actually, as the nerd I am about this stuff, it's a beautiful thing that everything has to match, and that's the check and balance to make sure everything's aligned, so that the independent auditors' review of our finances match exactly what's in our system and what we report to DPI.
Thank you, gentlemen, for indulging me. I just wanted to make sure that that was on the record, because once this is approved, it will be in the hands of the public. And I just wanted them to have a clear understanding of why they would see that finding at the end of the report. So again, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from board members? I do have a question. Can you make a statement about the OPEB account at the back? There was a mention there. I'd like to talk about the OPEB.
I think Greg can maybe go a little bit into it, but that's another extensive review that so I think Greg was doing a lot of accounting acronyms, GASB, GAAP, and all that. So the GASB is a Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and it's federal or some kind of national standards of accounting, and the district's accounting practices are held to a lot of those standards, and they make sure that we meet them. But there was, I think, a GAAP requirement to have OPEB reviewed, or other post-employment benefits. And Greg, if you want to chime in on that.
Yeah, I think as far as that relates to the district, what we've had an ongoing conversation about and a note in the management communications is right now you have a closed program and the total liability is only $116,000. but you have assets over in Fund 73 to fund these this liability of $3.5 million. So DPI has a structured approach that once this liability is down to zero, then you can go through a process with DPI to move the remaining assets back from Fund 73 over to Fund 10. So, approximately at this point, you would have $3.4 million coming back to the general fund, but they have pretty stringent requirements in terms of spending that on salaries and benefits for the district's members.
Right, I just like to reference that OPEB as their, our change in the couch cushions there. Because I think we're about a year off for the last employees that covers. So just as for in layperson's terms, I think one of the things as an elected board member, you're dealing with millions of dollars of the district's money, their community resources, and you just want to know that you're doing the right thing. These are important decisions that have to be made, and as we continue to develop a greater understanding of our finance and financial position for the district, that's what's important, that people see that, like I said again, to our ad hoc committee referendum work, our budget presentations, and now these audits, the financial statements that we present on a monthly basis at the Business Operations and Finance committee meetings, and then also to know that we are in order. Sometimes the money problem is only fixed with money. You either have it or you don't. And then there's corrective actions and steps that need to be taken. So we're thankful for the report of our finances and helping us to understand what our conditions are and where we're at. All right. So that concludes our agenda for the evening.
We have to approve the.
Oh, yes, we should approve it. All right. That's an action to take. Is there a motion?
I move approval of the School District of Beloit 2021-2022 Annual Financial Report.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Board Member Amy Levy and seconded by Board Member Greg Schneider. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes unanimously. And we're now on to our future meeting dates. As we have it listed, Business Operations and Finance, Tuesday, January 3rd at 5:30 p.m. Human Resource, Tuesday, January 3rd at 6:30 p.m. Our regular board meeting, Tuesday, January 3rd at 7 p.m. Policy Committee meeting, Wednesday, January 4th at 5:30 p.m. Teaching, Learning, Equity, and Pupil Services, Tuesday, January 17th at 5:30 p.m. And our Governance Committee meeting, January 24th at 5:30 p.m. Is there a motion for adjournment?
I do have one question, Board. I'm sorry to add this to the end here. I did miss one statement in my superintendent's report. Please note that the phone systems will be updated over the break. And so if you try to reach out to the school district over this break, you probably will get a dial tone, not that's their dial tone, but letting you know that our phone systems will be updated across the entire school district starting tomorrow. And so, again, if you try to reach out to the school district for any reason, please note that we are open on the dates that I did state, December the 21st, 22nd, 27th, 28th, 29th. And the rest of the days we will be on holiday break, but please note on those days that we are open. We are updating our phone systems, and so you will have to come directly to the building and or to KEC for further information. And the email has already went out as well.
Can people email?
Oh, yeah. You can definitely still email. Email will still work, but the phone system doesn't. Will be updated. Sorry.
Okay. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Amy Miller. It's been moved by Amy Levy and seconded by Board Member Greg Schneider Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And the motion passes unanimously. Good evening.